one knows where they came from, and no one knows who they really were. But they had achieved the technological power to move stars, realign planetary bodies, change their rotation and orbits, and reset entire star systems to favor life. Only now do we know them as the Founders. Through the course of the Founders' travels and work up to this point, many systems had been reorganized and seeded with the black fluid quite satisfactorily. Now it was time to begin work on this new system at the far end of the Orion Arm, which saw the arrival of several Founder fleets. Arriving into this oddly fashioned system immediately revealed a binary structure. The twin stars were in a very tight orbital plane, and this caused much of the potential problematic gravitational issues which needed to be overcome. Surveys of the system produced complicated relationships between the planets and the stars which had to be resolved. Without a safe and proper system alignment, this jumble of bodies and stars required much study, and particularly the proximity of the planets in this manner had never been seen before. The biggest concern, which had been projected through several computer models, showed the system would self-destruct due to catastrophic gravitational forces between the current existing bodies. With the loss of the planets in this manner, the two suns would rip each other apart as the planets maintaining a sort of balance would begin likewise self-destructing. Once the proper path had been determined, the oldest and most unstable star was extinguished, and a fleet of ships began moving it away from the rest of the bodies. As it began to cool down into a brown dwarf, it was expelled from the system entirely, its whereabouts to this day unknown. Now began the task of realigning the individual planetary systems. Even the gas giant, now known as Jupiter, was way too close to the remaining star for stability's sake. In moving these planets, the founders had developed a methodology whereby even the local moons went with them under their current gravitational force. In a very few cases, some of the smaller moons were lost. One planet we have become familiar with now as Earth. At this time, its surface was completely covered in silica. Massive high-speed sandstorms covered the planet and would literally sandblast the surface. Over many eons, this sandblasting would reshape a great many features and, in time, would leave entire mountains reshaped by the constant barrage. Some of these towers in their original height, though this reshaping by the constant winds left them appearing as towering trees of sand and silica that reached upwards into the atmosphere. We are not sure of the original inner system configuration, though for the sake of simplicity, the original two inner planets were most likely Venus and Earth. A rather old record has been translated, originally naming this planet as Terra, which had obviously evolved into the word Terra. The third body was the massive planet which became known as Tiamat. the remainder of the system was as we know it today. Though at this time it is suspected Saturn did not have any rings, and for which I will cover in a later episode. Once the system had been stabilized, the founders slowly began to move on. The earliest mining in this system that we can extrapolate occurred on this planet, Terra, now known as Earth. Only one follower race slipped into the system behind the founders and began massive mining operations on this world. At the time, Terra was completely covered in silica and was nowhere near the size we are today. Its relative orbit was located approximately where Venus is today. The massive structures of the sandstorm-carved silica towers were easy prey to begin with. And after even billions of years of weather and erosion, the remains of this operation can still be seen here. The tracks left behind by some huge machine, which it seems were left quite some time later, also can be seen here, which reveals extensive mining occurred on this planet. Even right now, here on Earth, we have machines which make the very same tracks, though these machines are considerably smaller. It is an unknown time frame much later, when several of the remaining follower mining races also made it here. The large masked body planet known as Tiamat seems to have been the main target, though we cannot be sure at this time if they also settled on other planets until further evidence appears. There had to have been 3 or 4 races which claimed their own portion of the planet mining for deep gold, diamonds, and it appears several heavy metals and other byproducts. And as can be expected, they also brought with them some of their own problems.